Kamala crash, Trump cash. What's up, everyone? Base Poll's back at it again. And breaking, shocking news here: $2 trillion wiped on the stock market, and the entire economy has just it's heading down for almost like a recession at this point. I mean, you're seeing major, Fortune 500 companies, huge shares in the S&P 500, Microsoft, Google, Meta, Apple down, Nvidia is down 11%. Look at that. Some of these companies, make up huge portfolios of Americans all over the country, and this is a trend. If it's not just one company, it's entire sectors, entire industries, and entire companies that have been down as of Monday morning, and the shares actually on Sunday were actually indicating that as well. So $2 trillion, and the Trump campaign's kind of dubbing this as Kamala crash, Trump cash. It's actually a very it's a very it's a good campaign slogan almost. Look at that, Trump cash versus Kamala crash. So Trump had actually predicted this. He believed that it eventually would. Stock market's crashing. I told you so. Kamala doesn't have a clue. Biden's asleep. This is all because of inept leadership. And he wrote this on his Truth Social platform on Sunday night. So the U.S. stock market plunged Friday. Monday was selling off with stock or futures for the S&P down more than 2% and more than 4% from NASDAQ. So yeah, 2%, usually 0.5, 1%, that's usually kind of like always expected. But when you have foreign markets reacting the same, look at that. Um, you know, the premier index for Japan fell 12.2%. So this is something that Trump has claimed that he had done well on. In fact, if you look at this, or if you looked at what Trump had done over the last couple of years in his presidency, minus COVID, obviously, even though that was like a K-shaped recovery or whatnot, people want to say that. But that's one of the things that he harps upon and says that that was his strong point, which it really was, if you think about it. If you look at a post from Brandon Tatum, this is inflation at the same point in presidency. Now, this is a little bit misleading given the fact that COVID had been the primary cause of getting basic goods and services being more expensive for the most part. When it's a whole domino effect. When COVID had occurred, obviously that led growth to supply chain issues. You had labor issues in the market, or you had a shortage. Often you usually had increased demand, shortage of supply. So a lot of this was just going all out of sorts, and that's also partially the reason. It's not just the United States that's dealing with inflation; it's the entire world. But at the end of the day, I don't know how you can justify 50% inflation um, for something like eggs. I mean, look at Trump. I mean, Airford, look at that, down 13%, down 8%. There's a lot of things that have actually gone down. Look at that, eggs. Actually, at the same point of presidency, 3.6%. And this is a really interesting graph because at this time in his presidency, in Trump's presidency, it was 2020 of August. So the pandemic already in full swing in the United States for at least 4 to 5 months. Like I said, it's not going to paint the whole picture because a lot of these issues have probably sprouted in early 2021, at that end of 2020. But I think what Americans are really going to have to decide about in November when it comes to the economy, and this doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. If you go to the grocery store, if you go pay any utility bills, you're noticing prices are up, and wages have not coincided with that. So, like I said, your purchasing power is diminishing every single day, and that's really how inflation robs you of any economic growth or prosperity. No matter how much money you can make right now, that power is going to get diminished because it's worth less and it will buy you less in the future. That's why you must hedge against inflation at all times. I mean, something basic like eggs, 49. I mean, a 50% markup. I mean, it's just like insane. I mean, get a car for like $6, and now it's like $9 or $10. And that's across the board for all groceries in general. Groceries 21%, right? Chicken 24%, transportation 32%. I mean, transportation, public transit has also gone up, understandably so. But like I said, gas. I think what we're talking about, yeah, right here, gas 47%. And this you could directly tie to Biden with Ukraine. Who knows? Maybe even Israel now. This is something that people are going to really have to think about. It's red in every single category. This is a huge sticking point that Trump's going to have to harp upon. Frank Lutz said the same thing. Usually, the economy isn't really a huge factor. Remember, most of America, I believe, only about, I'm not sure what the stat is, but only about 60% of Americans are actually have invested in stocks. So about half, or like other, 2/3 haven't really invested, or they don't have any money or cash that they've invested in the stock market. So the stock market's kind of okay. You can keep saying stock market's up, but a lot of maybe middle America or rural America, they're not really interested in. Okay, so I just pulled up another tweet of Frank Luntz, and what he's saying here pretty much echoes just what I've been saying, where inflation matters more than any other economic factor because you can literally see it. Voters see it when you're going about your daily life. You can literally see it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, and anyone trying to deny that just is not living. They're living in an alternate universe. And here's the thing: Biden says inflation's transitory. We all know that was wrong. He lied. But at the end of the day, Harris can't escape Biden because you are part of that administration, and she's going to have to answer those questions, which she hasn't now. So what Frank Lutz is saying, number two biggest priorities that Trump has to harp on is inflation, or the economy in a grander scheme of things, and immigration. Those are his two big selling points, and they're really not even that hard to sell because the data is just so obvious. I mean, we know that Trump, that chart was referring to when he got assassinated. And then this is another good chart, I would say, a good table that I think they should use. So let's take a look at the map here and how this will play out. If the economy is really, if people are really going to vote with the economy in mind, I would say this affects the Rust Belt states. And the reason why is you take a look at some of these states like Nevada, Arizona. There was a recent poll done on, what's the number one issue that you have in mind when voting for the next president of the United States. And pretty much they had a scale from 1 to 10 on voter intensity. What really sticks with them? And for voters in these states, it was immigration. You want to know why? Because they're literally right there. This is the border, southern border, and they probably are going to have much more exposure to illegal immigrants, aliens, whatnot, or any other crime that goes on. So they might be a little bit more warrior cautious of that. Whereas Rust Belt states, anyone over here, they're not really going to get as much exposure. And maybe in urban areas you will, but these Rust Belt states, outside of those urban areas, it's very like middle America. Obviously, you have union workers, and a lot of workers who could be affected by job loss. And obviously, Harris is against fracking. PA, huge fracking state. So, if I were to be honest with you, the polling is saying it's in favor of Harris for the Rust Belt states, ever so slightly. But I would say that if these states are going to vote for the economy in mind, this is a sweep, and that's pretty much the election. Trump is at 263, and I haven't even picked any one of these states. It's a given he's going to win at least one of these states. Give him like a Nevada. What the heck? And he wins the election. Or he actually doesn't. He needs one more vote. He'll win maybe Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. He just needs one of these states to win the election. It's a funny thing. And Harris actually sweeps. She actually could win. But that's just not a pathway that I think many are foreseeing to happen. Arizona, maybe you give Georgia to Harris because they, it's hard to say how they're going to vote. What's the intensity level that they'll be voting for if the economy's not on their mind? Because, is immigration going to be on their mind? I don't think so. So I would say you even give Trump Nevada and Arizona because of the immigration, because that's how voters are going to vote in those states. And right now, it's almost 296 to 242, and I gave her Georgia. So I think that's how this will play out if he can continue to go, as Frank Lenz said, to talk about the economy. Talks about the economy. I think these states are affected the most by the economy just because of the most working class jobs. You also have high urban areas, which sort of make it difficult to say that if these states are going to go blue or red. But like I said, a lot of coal mining, fracking, a lot of those kind of jobs here that Trump is in favor of supporting. And really, this is like that Rust Belt Middle America situation that Trump's really going to have to focus on if he wants to win the election. And so, like I said, Kamala crash, Trump cash. See you in the next one.